Good morning, it's your man, Pastor Jay, with another reflection on devotion. Today we're looking at the first half of 1 Corinthians chapter 3. And here Paul is continuing to advance his argument. Again, this is kind of similar to Romans, but he's dealing with a different situation. So he's addressing some specific issues in the church of Corinthians. And he begins this chapter by saying, "And our brother could not speak to you as spiritual men, but as to men of flesh, as to infants in Christ." And so what we get here is the fact that this church, as we look at historically, is more of a Gentile church. The Roman church was more Jewish converts, but this one is more of the Gentiles who are accepting the gospel. And so Paul here has to give them the very basics. He says in verse 2, "I gave you milk to drink, not solid food, for you were not yet able to receive it. Indeed, even now you are not yet able." And so what he's saying is, okay, you've had some growth, and he commended them earlier in the chapter about their growth, but you are not mature yet. He's saying, I still have to give you milk, because you are still dealing with some issues that have you in the flesh. In fact, verse 3 says, "For you are still fleshly, for since there is jealousy and strife among you, are you not fleshly, and are you not walking like mere men?" Now could be a stinging rebuke, because I'm sure that the church in Corinth was much like the churches today, where people think they're so spiritual and so holy, and yet we see the type of strife and contention and jealousy in the churches today, like he's talking about now. And so I would suggest that we need to understand that whenever there's strife and jealousy and conflict in the church, that there needs to be some spiritual maturity. And so it's up to the leaders to try to pour into their members. And sometimes you got to take it back to basics. A lot of times we like to get high-minded, particularly in some of the larger churches where we're so sophisticated and get a little bit bougie, and we like to have these high theological sermons and illustrations and high praise and these type of things. But sometimes you got to get back to basics, because if there is evidence of immaturity, you need to address it, because the longer you allow that type of immaturity to take place, the more damage is going to happen when you try to bring new believers into the mix. So I want to encourage the leaders out there to step back and do an overview, an evaluation of what's going on at the church, so you can see what needs to be addressed. Sometimes you're a little disconnected, a little above the fray, so we're not sure how to address things, but sometimes you have to evaluate it and see what's going on. And this is what Paul is doing in this chapter. And then he gives the examples of exactly what the evidence is for this immaturity. It says in verse 4, "For one says, I'm of Paul, and another, I am of Apollos. Are you not mere men?" And so in verses 5 through 9, Paul addresses this issue by saying, "Listen, what then is Apollos and what is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, even as the Lord gave opportunity to each one." What we have to understand, and I touched on this in an earlier reflection, is the fact that we are not, the vessel has nothing to do with the message. The leaders that are over you, the pastors, all they are their vessels being used by God to present a message. Stop looking up to the pastor as this super spiritual being. The pastors are just like you. They're struggling with their own salvation. They're dealing with their own relationship with Christ and their sins that they have to overcome. But they've been called to a specific purpose to share the gospel. So don't put them on that high pedestal and then crucify them when they fall, because the reality is that they're mere men. They've just been given a special task to do. And so that you can't look at them as this too special. Again, respect what, the Bible talks about respect for leadership and authority. But you can't put them above ordinary men. because God again has put us leaders as stewards. We have a message that we're to proclaim. Yes, we have an example that we're to lead by. However, don't put us on that particular pedestal, because it hurts you in the long run. And then, of course, the leader who falls gets crucified, and it's a big mess. But understand that leaders are people too. Pastors are people too. They struggle with their various sins. God has just called them. God has called you to a specific purpose, and he expects you to fulfill that purpose. So please, please understand that when you're dealing with spiritual matters, it's all a matter of God using us. We are nothing. We have nothing that makes us worthy of being a presenter of the gospel. We just accepted the call that God placed on our lives. And I pray that today you will accept whatever call God has on your life, so you can be used to be an example to show his love, his grace to others. Please tune in again tomorrow for another reflection on devotion, where we'll finish up this chapter in 1 Corinthians. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. It's your man, Pastor Jay. I'm out.